In the world of sports, we throw the word legend around a lot, right? But every now and then, a name comes along that feels like it's on a whole other level. A name that pretty much means unbeatable. And today, we're talking about that name, Jahangir Khan.
I want to start with just one thing, a number, 555. That's it, no context, just 555. It sounds huge, doesn't it? Almost made up? But believe me, this number represents one of the most mind-blowing achievements in the entire history of sports.
So what is it? Well, that number, 555, is the longest winning streak ever recorded in any top-level professional sport. Let that sink in. 555 matches in a row without a single loss. It's just staggering.
And here he is, the man behind that impossible number, Jahangir Khan from Pakistan. For 5.5 solid years, from 1981 all the way to 1986, he just didn't lose. He was an absolute force of nature on the squash court.
And look, this isn't just some sport's tall tale. It's an officially recognized Guinness World Record, etched in the history books forever. But a record this massive, this unbreakable, it doesn't just happen by accident. To really get how he did it, we've got to go back to the beginning.
See, to understand the man, you have to understand the family. His story doesn't really start with him, it begins way before that. He was born into what you can only call a squash dynasty.
I mean, the sport was literally in his blood. His dad, Roshan Khan, was a British Open champion and his very first coach, and his older brother, Torsam, he was a fantastic international player in his own right and a real mentor to Jahangir. So he was born into greatness, but that legacy, it was about to be hit by an unbelievable tragedy.
And this is where everything changes. We're at the most critical turning point of his life, an event so devastating it almost made him quit before his career even really started. But instead, it's what forged him into the legend he became.
Just look at this timeline. It's an absolute emotional roller coaster. In 1979, he's just 15 years old, and he becomes the youngest world amateur champion ever, a huge high. But then, just months later, his brother and his hero, Torsam, tragically dies of a heart attack right in the middle of a match. It's a soul-crushing blow. And yet, somehow, just 2 years after that, he channels all of that pain and becomes the youngest World Open champion ever. He's only 17.
You can only imagine how he felt. He was completely shattered and seriously thought about quitting squash for good. But then he made a choice. He decided he wouldn't quit. He would dedicate his entire career to his brother. Every single match, every point, every win, it would all be a tribute to Torsam. It wasn't about just winning anymore. It was a promise.
And what followed that promise? Well, it was a period of the most absolute, suffocating dominance the sport has ever seen. He wasn't just playing for himself anymore. He was on a mission, and he was fulfilling that promise, one victory at a time. You can see that dominance written all over the World Open, the sport's biggest prize. He won it 6 times, taking down a whole generation of squash legends. I mean, look at those names in the final. Jeff Hunt, Jahangir Khan. He just had no equal.
But if the World Open shows his peak, the British Open shows his insane longevity. This is basically the Wimbledon of squash, and he won it 10 times in a row. A whole decade of just pure ownage. He beat every top player the world could throw at him, again and again and again.
So, what happens when probably the most dominant athlete of all time finally hangs up his racket? Well, for Jahangir Khan, retiring in 1993 wasn't the end of the story. It was just a transition from one kind of court to another.
He didn't just walk away from the game he loved. Nah, he stepped up. He went from being the world's best player to a leader, becoming president of the World Squash Federation, and later its emeritus president. He kept shaping the sport, but his impact was about to get even bigger.
In more recent years, he's really shifted his focus to giving back. He's the global president of the Shadi Afridi Foundation, which works on healthcare and education in Pakistan, and he's also a global goodwill ambassador for hernias support. It's clear that the incredible drive he had on the court is now being used to help other people.
And that brings us all the way back to the beginning, back to that number, 555. And it leaves you with this one huge question. In today's hyper-competitive sports world, could we ever see a streak like this again? It really makes you wonder if this record isn't just unlikely to be broken, but if it's truly, completely unbreakable.